Now let's start with the Ghanaian Times, and a big one in front of the Ghanaian Times: access to medical care, no protocol. Ghana Health Service Director General declares. Stories on page 12, and as well, President pardons Sammy Gyamfi. You find that on page 13 of the Ghanaian Times, and as well, leverage SML Ghana platform to increase revenue. We shall bring you details of that. What do we have?
The BNFT COPEC flags mammoth losses in upstream sector, says we produce 100,000 barrels, reports 60,000, translating into $350 million to $450 million annual losses. And they are urging SML Ghana's real-time monitoring system to be used. Now, sub-Saharan African banks, the central banks, target lower remittance costs. That's going to be good for people sending in money into the continent. And BOG's DPI project to shape Africa's future payments blueprint. Now, on banking, Republic Bank honored for Ashanti region's economic development. And there's a story on credit scoring, which is evolving amid AI and big data revolution. And the president of the Federation of Association of Ghanaian Exporters is calling for targeted policy to support export and agribusiness.
Well, that's it for the Ghanaian Times here. But online as well, we've got some headlines which we'll bring to you. But let's bring you details now. So this one had my attention, Kujo. Says that access to medical care, no protocol. By this, he means that the Director General means that if you have a health concern and you're going to the hospital, you don't have to now call somebody to book an appointment. People should be able to have equal and equitable access to healthcare. But have you gone to Kolebu before?
Yes.
And if you have gone to Kolebu, you will know that there's something like an emergency because you have to book an appointment, which can take you about 3 months. And for a patient who is so afraid that I'm quite unwell, I don't know if I'm going to survive it in 3 months, would definitely want to get some protocol. But well, let me bring you that story. It's on page 12. So access to medical care. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba Akorie, has called for an end to the widespread practice of patients needing connections or protocols to access medical care across public hospitals in the country. He described the situation as unacceptable, stressing that every Ghanaian deserves equal access to healthcare regardless of their social status or affiliation. Kojo?
Yeah, I mean, what Prof. Kaba wants to achieve there is noble, right? It ought to be that you can access healthcare without having to, call some nurse that you know or some doctor that you know. You should be able to walk in as a citizen, go through a system that is smooth and will not take 3 months, to get you the necessary healthcare. Yeah. But you see, it's just like what happens at the passport office. Whenever there is a scarce resource, people will monetize access to that resource, right? And that is what creates these unnecessary delays, because people have filled in the gaps with their own, as he calls it, protocol, right? And that means that you, the person whose healthcare needs are immediate, have to sit around and wait.
Absolutely.
Until fever shines upon you.
And generally as well, the hospitals are quite overwhelmed. If you visit Kolebu, you know that it serves not just the country, but some part of West African countries, even the neighboring countries as well. It serves all of us, and so it looks like both the doctors and even the facility, it's quite overwhelmed, and people are not able to access equal. Well, I like to think that for healthcare, you may not even be able to access equal. You may access equitable health care, if I may say. Well, as well, the president pardons Sammy Gyamfi. And you may have seen already, or this morning you may have heard, that his public apology is what the president has accepted. But he must go and
a reprimand from the chief of staff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are the big ones in the Ghanaian Times. But again, let me bring you this one.
There's also been a withdrawal of the petition that was sent to CHRAJ about this.
Yes. So when I spoke to the petitioner 2 days ago on Joy News Today, he mentioned that he's received a series of threats on his life, and so he was going to relocate from where he was to go and live close to a police station, so that if it becomes a problem, he can seek refuge with the police.
What was the reason for the withdrawal? Did he give one?
He, in his in his letter to CHRAJ, he didn't particularly state, but in his interview with our colleague at Asempa, he mentioned that, well, it looked as though he had something personal against Sammy Gyamfi, and for him, he only saw a video that triggered his decision to want to petition CHRAJ. But in order for people not to think that he's on a certain or personal vendetta towards Sammy Gyamfi, he needed to withdraw the petition.
But the original petition included a letter that alleged some large sums of money in Sammy Gyamfi's accounts and all of that. So is he now telling us that he made all of that up?
So what he actually means is that he's not saying that that's not true, or CHRAJ shouldn't investigate if they themselves want to investigate. He says that he doesn't feel that he was doing a noble thing because people thinks he has a personal problem with Sammy Gyamfi, and for people in the media not to think that he has a personal problem with Sammy Gyamfi, he's just withdrawing the petition. That's it.
Let's go to the BNFT now. There's a big story on our upstream sector when it comes to oil. COPEC flags mammoth losses in upstream sector. And the story by Ebenezer J. Njoku says, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, has raised fresh concerns over revenue leakages in the upstream petroleum sector, urging the government and regulatory authorities to adopt real-time monitoring technologies to curtail losses and strengthen the fiscal oversight. According to him, we cannot continue to produce 100,000 barrels of oil and only report 60,000 barrels, and 40,000 barrels go. Where the 40,000 barrels go remains a question because we lack the mechanism to verify entries at each stage of production and exports. So that's what Duncan Amoah is saying, and he's referring to SML Ghana's success in helping GRA recover an estimated 20 billion in downstream revenues, and recommending that we choose SML to do this.
Duncan Amoah is recommending SML.
Yes. Now, a few questions here. So, at the upstream sector, how do the producers record the volumes that they're extracting from the sea or from the reserves, right? And how do we also verify that? Do we not have any means of doing this? Do we need to do something immediately? We've been drilling oil for over 10 years. So are we saying that as a country we've not put in place any checks and balances to determine the volume of oil we are getting? And are we saying that the players in the upstream sector are actually stealing from Ghana? And so if that's the case, it's something we really need to investigate. So Duncan says it's unacceptable, and we should look at technologies, including SML's platforms, to deal with this particular issue. Now, on the same petroleum related industry, in the industry, the government has dropped oil cash funding for PIAC. This is a story in the BNFT by Kizito Kujo. It says the PIAC, which is the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, a key watchdog over the country's oil revenues, has been stripped of its petroleum funding following a legal amendment to the current by the current government. The change assented to by President John Dramani Mahama on April 2 revises the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, specifically sections 21 and 57, removing a crucial source of financial support that once ensured PIAC's independence and effectiveness. Now, we are told that the amended act, which is a portion of the petroleum, which stated that a portion of the petroleum receives approved by Parliament should support the national government. It is also directing that PIAC submits for inclusion in the national budget each year how much money they would need to be able to run. And basically, there are people who believe that this change will affect the independence of PIAC, and we must relook at it. So that's two stories from the petroleum sector.
There's another one that I saw in the Ghanaian Times, which would be the last one, would be that DVLA is asking that if you have not registered your excavator or farm mechanic propelled equipment, you should. Now, it says that owners of excavators and farming equipment have been given a 2-week ultimatum to register the excavators and mechanic propelled farming equipment without delay, effective yesterday. A directive, according to the Chief Executive Officer of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, which you know as DVLA, Mr. Julius Nikwekote, follows the discovery of about 50 unregistered excavators found within forest areas across the country that had not been registered with the authority. And so this is just a caution. I'm certain you know what would happen if you don't register it and then it is found.
Yes, now the BOG says their DPI projects will shape Africa's future payments. Now the story says the Bank of Ghana, in collaboration with the National Bank of Rwanda and Singapore's Global Financial Technology Network, has launched the Next Gen Digital Payment Infrastructure Project, a central bank-led initiative designed to overhaul Africa's cross-border payments and establish a model for future financial integration across the continent. The project was highlighted at the 3i Africa Summit 2025 Policy Forum in Accra, where policymakers, central bankers, and private sector leaders convened to advance the continent's digital finance agenda. If this is done, it will be very good, because you are talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and it's difficult to send money across the continent and receive. We know of PAPS, which is being led by the AFTA Secretariat. There are a few banks. My bank offers you the opportunity to use PAPS to pay across borders and all that. But I think we need to deepen the digital financial space in Africa, so that I can easily send money to my friend Tony, who is somewhere in, say, South Africa, in the morning via my Momo or some easy system, so we can trade. The more money we can move, the more it enables trade.
Right.
We've not been able to work on transport, so if people move easily and cheaper, it enables trade, and so movement enables trade. But if you are not moving physically, we should be able to move the money so that we can, and I think this is a great thing. If the BOG, Rwandan Central Bank, and all the central banks across the continent can get this done, we'll do business and make better money. I'll take you to some more stories. If you go to page 7 of the BNFT, Phage President calls for targeted policy to support export and agribusiness. You know, Joy News is partnering Phage for the Ghana Horticulture Expo, and the president of the Federation of Association of Ghanaian Exporters, Davis Kobo, has called for a clear and robust policy framework to support Ghana's export sector and agribusiness industry. He warned that without it, exporters will continue to struggle amid ongoing economic pressures. And with the CD appreciating, there are some exporters saying that this is not good for them. But overall, analysts say CD's appreciation is good for our economy, it's good for all of us. And so there are a lot of things to be done in this regard to keep us going.